Greetings Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, finally, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there and joining me here an hour late. I do apologize. I had everything ready to go. Everything looked good. I hit the go live button at 7 p.m. Eastern. And something attacked the computer systems here. Shut everything down, froze everything, deleted the broadcast, took down all of our Twitter tabs, strangely enough, where I had some material lined up for tonight. And then I received a very strange email shortly after, about 29 minutes later. A strange email came in, which I will share with you as we wrap up this abbreviated edition of Maverick News tonight. Very, very strange times. Seems somebody doesn't believe in free speech. But it's not the first time we've experienced pressure like that here. Stick around. I'll tell you about that. Plus, tonight, Justin Trudeau retreating on the immigration issue in a big way while he tries desperately to hang on to his leadership in the face of an internal liberal revolt against him. We have a news conference with him and reaction coming up from Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, and a war of words brewing and spreading and spewing between Kamala Harris and people around Trump following her remarks yesterday about Donald Trump being essentially a Nazi, and RFK Jr. pushing back against that today, saying that Kamala Harris wants to use the military against American citizens on American soil, giving the military permission to shoot, to kill protesters. What a weird election.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, I'm back. And Justin, where do you want to start tonight? Let's start with, what should we start with? You know what we should start with? The newest, latest breaking news tonight coming from Joe Biden. He is still, technically, the president. And just moments ago. Oh, I also have a story tonight about 4 arrests being made after 4 stabbings at a high school in Montreal, which Dragon called to let us know about earlier today. So I have all of that. I'm going to get to that too, because that's an important story, even though we're going to have a much shorter broadcast tonight. Much shorter. Going to get to that. But Biden, just moments ago, showing a little burst of energy here as he jogs over to speak to reporters to say that he's heading west to do something that should have been done a long time ago, make a formal apology to Indian nations. it sounds very much Trudeau-like to me, very progressive, very United Nations-y. We've been talking a lot about UNDRIP here. The United States is a much different animal politically. Why is Biden doing this exactly? I'm not really sure. Except that it is politically in vogue right now, and times they are a-changing, that is for sure. So let's pick up Biden here as he engages in this scrum, as they're shouting at him. Here we go. Yeah, he's got a little bit of pep there.
I'm heading to do something that should have been done a long time ago. Make a formal apology to the Indian nations for the way we treated their children for so many years. That's why I'm going. That's why I'm heading west. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, Joe. I'm getting up there myself. It's a little, those bones are a little achy and creaky. But I try to jog too a little bit when I'm out walking the Cosmo. I okay, that's good. I just, not bad for a guy, what is he, in his 80s, right? So, I think. So, cut him a little slack. And he only has a few weeks left. Well, till January. So, go Joe. It's okay. I don't know. We'll have to see what that apology is all about. But I think politicians should be careful about the wording they use, because a lot of this stuff can come back to bite them on the butt legally later. Yeah. The whole country later. So be careful. Word it all very carefully. To be fair to both sides, and to do what is in the best interests of all people. Indian nations, other communities, everybody, all American citizens. We should be choosing our words very carefully, because a lot of this stuff deals with legal things, nationally and even internationally. And I don't think the politicians are being nearly careful enough. And even First Nations in Canada, Indian nations, language far too loosely used, including in UNDRIP, which is it's a terrible document, just terribly written. It's just causing all kinds of chaos and division, and I think it's just an awful document that's going to lead to litigation, is already leading to legal problems. Okay, let's pivot back. As you know, Kamala Harris came out and talked about Donald Trump, basically saying that he is a Nazi, fascist, making this statement, and it's just sent shockwaves through the U.S. and beyond. It is really taken the election campaign and cast a very dark shadow over it. It is political strategy. I'm not so sure that it's actually going to help her. Why is she doing it? Does she really believe it? I don't know what people believe anymore. It's hard for me to even determine who the good guys are and the bad guys, but I'll say this. Harris is using emotion to drive voters to the polls. She, through that speech, that address to the nation, where she really looked more like she was taking up the position of vice president of the United States and addressing the nation, more so than trying to portray herself in that broadcast as a candidate. I'm going to run that for you again before we move on to what RFK Jr. has said about it. I don't like it, because I think this is inflammatory. I think that it is an exaggeration to some degree, and yeah, it's an exaggeration. It's not the kind. It might be effective rhetoric to fire up her base and motivate them to get out to the polls by scaring the living daylights out of them, or maybe scaring some people away from voting for Trump. But I don't think it's good for the nation. And it's certainly not good for democracy, because I think it is just so, it's not even that it's just extreme, the language that she's using. It's that it encourages extremism, because it just really amplifies the polarization politically. I think it's very dangerous, especially at a time when people are literally talking about the possibility of a civil war. So I don't know if this is really the responsible way for Harris to be campaigning. But here's, or even especially acting as vice president. So in that capacity, I offer you, well, this is what she said in that role. Let me just roll it again. 3 minutes.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Thank you.
So that was Harris. I just find it troubling. I can say with extreme confidence, though, that there is a problem out there with amplified racism, amplified hate, anger, polarization, people upset with their current situation when they think about where the economy is. the United States, Canada as well, is not in a good place right now. We are, I believe, fighting an actual third world war. As part of that, we're all being bombarded daily with propaganda of all kinds from various sides. It's hard to know what's true and what isn't. And as you just saw, emotion is being used to drive people to make choices in this upcoming election and in other elections and just politically in general. And I'll say this, I think both sides are doing it. And RFK Jr. attacking Harris on this point, here's what he had to say. Some of you may have already heard this, but here we go.
President Harris said today in her post, in her speech, she said that President Trump was going to turn the U.S. military against the American public and use the public to promote its agenda. How many of you think that is true? Well, what's interesting to me is that the Biden-Harris administration has done something 2 weeks ago that has never been done in American history, which is to send exactly lethal force, to send a directive to the Pentagon, changing the law to make it legal for the U.S. military to use lethal force against American citizens on American soil. Technically, now it's legal for the U.S. military, under this directive, it will become legal for the U.S. military to shoot and kill Americans who engage in political protest because they disagree with policies in the White House. I'm not making this up. Any of you can look it up. This is a Democratic initiative. This did not come during the Trump administration. This did not come from Donald Trump. It came from the Democratic Party. And that's why I left the Democratic Party.
I feel the unrest. I feel the tension. I feel the divide. I feel the mania that is out there. I see it. I hear it. I can taste it. It's terrible. But you know, his words as well, hardly conciliatory, hardly, words seeking compromise or words to calm the nation or an olive branch to the other side. Those are inflammatory words too. It takes two to tango, sometimes more. There's an election on. It's for all the marbles, and it's for keeps, at least for 4 years. Some are afraid maybe forever because of the rhetoric that I'm hearing. And I see both sides in this, and I understand why both sides are worried and even afraid, because I bring you those words from RFK Jr., inflammatory as well. They want to use the military 2 weeks ago. They did this, and they want to shoot to kill you. Yeah, well, but then I have to say, every single day, I hear something from someone, somewhere, somehow, talking about revolution, civil war, saying if we don't win the election, well, we're not there yet, but after the election, I hear it all the time. You think they don't hear it over there? You think they don't take it seriously? I hear it. So I get it. Should we take that stuff seriously? I think it's being said so much by people who probably don't mean it that I don't know. It's just terrible. People are very emotional. I think people are just not careful enough with their words, and then it just gets amped up and ramped up, and I don't see really anybody out there trying to calm things down. And I think it's important that that happens, because if it doesn't, I don't know what's going to happen after the election or even during the election. I just don't know, but I'm worried about it because I see the conflict and it's not good. I'll tell you this, you know who's sitting back laughing right now? Vladimir Putin and his buddies. Of course he is. Every time there's some major crisis, you think the Russians don't stick their fingers into that and manipulate things just a little bit, take advantage of? Of course they do. We're seeing evidence of that again. I saw it during all of that turmoil, chaos surrounding the FEMA relief efforts during the hurricanes. I came across a lot of social media posts that were clearly propaganda, absolutely clearly propaganda, and driven by social media accounts, particularly on X, that are pro-Russian, if not controlled by Russia. No doubt about it. I was able to trace photos back and figure out where the sources were. I didn't get into it too much here because, frankly, when I talk about that stuff, some people lose their minds and think that I'm like their enemy, which just further reinforces what I'm saying. Because the people who act like that are just showing that they are brainwashed to the point where they hate their own country, can't listen to anybody who might tell them something that in even the least little way challenges their little worldview, bringing you information that might actually be of some use to you. And they're so entrenched in their way of thinking that they refuse to look at any other side. They're very myopic. That's why people are being accused, some people on the Trump side, of being in a cult by people from the other side. It's because you just won't listen, or you freak out when somebody challenges you on anything. Well, there is evidence of Russian involvement, maybe not full control, but anytime there's any kind of a problem, they will get behind it and throw fuel on the fire through social media just to create chaos. They'll do it on both sides. They were doing it during the hurricanes. 100%. And tonight, there are reports out there that show that indeed that is what Russia was doing. They did it during the fires in Lahaina too. And I still challenge anybody to go find me the relatives of all those thousands of missing children who everybody was freaking out about. And I said, just go find me a relative, just even one, so we can bring them on. Even to this day, not one person has been found who can even talk about a missing child. In any event, here's the headline. To drive Americans apart, Russia helped spread hurricane disinformation. Of course they did. Associated Press. Russia has helped amplify and spread false and misleading internet claims about recent hurricanes in the United States and the federal government's response, part of a wider effort by the Kremlin to manipulate America's political discourse before the presidential election. New research shows. The content spread by Russian state media and networks of social media accounts and websites criticizes the federal response to hurricanes Helene and Milton, exploiting legitimate concerns about the recovery effort in an attempt to paint American leaders as incompetent and corrupt, according to research from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. This is from a London-based organization, London, England. And here's more. Efforts by Russia, Iran, and China to sway U.S. voters may escalate. And, you can believe it or not, it's up to you. But if you think for 1 minute that other countries are not trying to, impact what you're thinking through propaganda and information warfare, you are blind and naive. Of course they are. We know we have foreign interference going on in Canada right now. It's a real thing. China, Iran, India, which seems to be emerging as one of the main players in Canada in that regard, influencing a whole bunch of members of parliament identified by CSIS, Canada's equivalent of, well, that's Canada's intelligence agency, and the RCMP, and people are screaming, name the names, name the names. And yet when I show you information like this, I don't even need to look in the chat. I'm sure there are people, Rick he's arrogant and he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. Oh, that email's coming up, by the way. No, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Of course it's going on. It's not the whole story, but they're involved, man. They're absolutely involved. And look at where we're at now. Totally divided. People fighting. No middle ground left, hardly at all politically. One side's Kamala Harris is calling Donald Trump a fascist, Nazi. Trump is calling Kamala Harris a communist. So now we have a U.S. election where the two choices, I guess, are either you get to pick a communist or you get to pick a Nazi. Do you think either of those things are true? Do you think either of them are actually those things? Do you think she's a communist and he's a Nazi? My guess is if you sat down and maybe had lunch with either of them, you might find out that neither one of them is really quite that extreme, and they're both Americans, and at the end of the day, maybe you all kind of want the same things and want to get there in slightly different ways. The enemy from within, they both think that they have an enemy within, and it's the other side. It's MAGA or the Democrats, and I say MAGA because the old Republicans, that doesn't really exist anymore. It's the MAGA party. And that's okay. It's just a terrible environment right now. It's very toxic. And I yearn for old civil political discourse. It's just not there anymore. I said during the pandemic that journalism died, that it is dead. Like regular journalism, dead. And it largely is. I'm one of the old school journalists, still sitting in a chair here, adapting to a new medium and a new environment. But as much as old school, traditional, real journalism and real reporting seems to have died, so too has, I guess, moderate politics. Now it's communists versus the Nazis. Careful, folks, because Vladimir Putin doesn't like Nazis, and I can tell you that the Russian information warfare machine has ramped up real heavy, and they're trying to portray even Canada now as a full-on, full-blown Nazi nation. So when Vladimir Putin comes a-calling, and all that propaganda that some of you guys have been listening to has you believing that the Russians and Vladimir Putin are your friend and they're here to help. No, actually, you're the Nazi that he'll be looking for. Just saying. So, yeah, be real careful because, there are Russian fingerprints all over this. I'll be right back.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You still don't believe me? I'm still not looking at the chat. I refuse. You still don't believe me? That you're the Nazi that Vladimir Putin's going to come looking for? Well, I get messages like this all the time. And this will relate to the email I'm going to show you later. Today, on my phone, somebody messaged me, somebody I know. They've changed over the last couple of years. They are they've gone from sort of being, I don't know, we never really talked much about this stuff, but then October 7th happened, and then this person became, I'm not going to use their name, but more and more rah-rah for Putin, and Russia, loves Russia on that side, and it's just been amplified so much over time that today I literally got a message. This is a person who loves Putin and wants Putin to win in Ukraine, would rather have Putin here running everything, would like to have Russian intervention, I guess, here to save Canada. What? And today I got a message, F the Jews. So as Vladimir Putin is using denazification as justification, in large part, for his actions in Ukraine, I have people here who love Putin while they say F the Jews. And I know that we're hearing people talk about, pro-Russian influencers talking about invading Canada. You think they're joking? You think Tucker Carlson is joking when he's talking about coming up to liberate Canada? When Jackson Hinkle says that they should just take over Canada? When, I don't know, like maybe it's all just a big joke, but when I get messages like that on my phone, from people who say that they're not racist and they don't hate the Jews, but then they say F the Jews. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, we have a problem, Houston. Okay, we have a serious problem. This little spaceship Earth that we're on, we have a big problem, and no wonder we're in the midst of World War III, and some people don't even know it. People are not even getting what they're saying anymore. Like literally, they say things like that and send me messages, and I'm sure that they don't realize what they've just done. Check yourself. I'm doing it every day. I'm trying to check myself to see how far I've fallen, how crazy I've become. Am I still sane? I'm knock wood. I think I'm still okay. But I'll show you the email in a little while. Somebody totally disagrees. What about Justin Trudeau? I mean, is that guy coming, going, staying, leaving? Is he going to be able to stay on as prime minister? Today, I saw yesterday that the Canadian government, Trudeau was going to make major changes to their immigration policy. Indeed, that is what has happened here today. And he's just held a news conference to explain what's going on. This is a response after yesterday's caucus meeting where there was basically an attempted internal political coup against Trudeau from within his own party, which he survived, at least for today. This is a shift in policy, no doubt because of what he knew was going on in there. He knows immigration has become one of the major issues, if not the major issue. Because even though it's supposed to be a carbon tax election, according to Pierre Poilievre, that he wants called, Poilievre wants to make it about the carbon tax, which is by extension an election that he would run on economic issues and taxation, affordability. It's about housing prices. That's what the immigration issue is all about. Trudeau knows this, and I think his caucus told him, these power brokers within the Liberal party itself, they've laid it on the line. And so this is his response. Let's go to the news conference here, and we'll also get reaction from Pierre Poilievre. And we were also aware that Trudeau was warned by an organization that had done a study advising him that they told the government early on, I think I'll have to get the information for you, but they knew that these immigration policies could affect housing prices and affordability in a really negative way, but they just pushed ahead with the immigration anyway. Well, now they're dialing it back finally, and I think that's because we're heading into an election. But
thank you, Paul, for your words.
This is going to be
your
a rocky
work
time
as Parliamentary Secretary on immigration. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. In a moment, Minister Miller will be detailing our immigration plan. Before he does, I want to say a few things. Canadians are justifiably proud of our immigration system. It has made our economy the envy of the world. It's how we've built strong, diverse communities. It's how we've demonstrated that differences can and must be a source of strength, not a source of weakness for communities and society. Immigration is vital to our future. And as a federal government, we have to make sure that that pride, that faith in immigration is not undermined. We've been through a hard time these past few years. COVID stopped everything. When we started to emerge from it, workers were in short supply, things we needed weren't going to market, and prices started going up. So we acted. We made sure that our businesses had workers. Our economy got moving again, and we actually experienced the fastest jobs recovery after the pandemic in the G7. Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians for right now. Today, we're announcing that we will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years. Aujourd'hui, on annonce qu'on réduira le nombre d'immigrants qu'on accueille au cours des 3 prochaines années, ce qui entraînera une pause dans la croissance de la population au cours des 2 prochaines années. This builds on our previously announced measures to cap international student permits and reform the temporary foreign worker program, all of which we are implementing with a single aim: stabilize our population growth to give all levels of government time to catch up, time to make the necessary investments in healthcare, in housing, in social services to accommodate more people in the future. Our immigration system has always been responsible, and it has always been flexible. And so we are acting today. Because in the tumultuous times as we emerged from the pandemic, between addressing labor needs and maintaining population growth, we didn't get the balance quite right.
Yeah.
With the plan we're announcing today,
fast,
along with previously announced measures, we're making our immigration system work better. Les mesures qu'on a déjà mises en place font effet.
So blah, 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 blah. That's, you've got the idea. You know what he's saying. Okay, so let me just see here before we get to Poilievre. So what do we got? We have federal government. They're going to slash their immigration targets to levels that they say will flatten population growth. They're still going to bring in, well, they were bringing in about 500,000 a year. That was their target. And in fact, I think during the pandemic, there was a year where we hit 1 million. It was just an absolute record, and far more, like way more than what the government had allocated for, planned for. And so next year, they're going to cut that number to 395,000, and then in the next year, 380,000. And so for the next couple of years, they say that will actually result in negative population growth in Canada by And then they'll get back into positive growth after that of about 0.2 to 0.8 or something. I'm sorry, not into negative growth. They're saying it's going to decline to less than 1%, like 0.2% next year, and then 0.5% the year after that or something. And then after that, they'll get back into like 1.5%, 2% growth. Probably it'll continue to grow faster than that. Those numbers are probably much lower than where we are really at. And it has to be much bigger, much more substantial than they are saying, because you're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it in all of our communities. I'm seeing it here, even in this sort of medium-sized little city that I live in. It's having a very definite effect on the demographics here. And I don't really have an issue with any of that, but I don't think it's having too much of an impact where I'm living. But if you go up to, the GTA, where everybody who's coming into the country, it seems, wants to live, it's having really serious effects there. You go to Calgary, another major city, where they get a lot of immigration, a lot of new Canadians coming in. It's putting massive pressure on the housing market. It's throwing things topsy-turvy. And then overall, it's making houses that, not very long ago, that might have sold for $300,000 to $500,000. Now you're looking at prices in the $750,000, $1 million, and young people simply can't afford to get into the market. And even though interest rates just this week were cut again, and they've extended mortgage terms through new rules just recently, with Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister, announcing this, to go from 20-year to 30-year amortizations to make it affordable, a lot of people still just can't. They just don't have enough means to realize that first home. And it's a serious problem for Justin Trudeau, for us, certainly for the government. For Pierre Poilievre, it is an opportunity, I would say. And the government, as I said, they had studies. We know this because of Freedom of Information requests by journalists who were able to get documents, studies that were presented to Justin Trudeau, telling him early on that these massive waves of immigration since he took office were likely to have very negative effects on the affordability of housing in the country, and that is exactly where we are at. It's simply an issue of supply and demand. More and more people coming in, more and more families, and we just don't have enough houses being built. That, coupled with massive amounts of red tape for contractors, developers, restrictions on where you can build, how you can build, it really leaves them hogtied when it comes to trying to build enough housing to supply the market and give people a roof over their heads. And that even affects rental properties as well. It results in higher rents for people who rent. The people on the left side of the political spectrum, of course, their solution in their little minds is, well, we'll just build a bunch of houses with government money and give housing away or subsidize it for people. In other words, they're going to build you a little box and shove you in it and build, geared to income housing. But that's not what the American dream, certainly not what the Canadian dream of home ownership is about. Most of the things the government has done to address this issue have been aimed at renters, not home ownership. Anyway, that's what this next election is really going to be fought on. It's more than just the carbon tax. It's about all of these issues: housing, affordability, inflation, the cost of groceries, job availability. What kind of wages are people going to be able to make? It's not. I'm not surprised that people are upset, polarized politically. and then finding groups of people to blame for the problems when it isn't really just, it's not so much the groups of people, it's the government policies that have inflamed all of these things. And then, you see, we don't need to get into all of it because you're well aware. You're seeing the protests in the streets. You're seeing people struggle. You're seeing people upset. I get it. I know. All this stuff can be fixed. A lot of people hoping that Poilievre, who it appears will be the next Prime Minister of Canada, all things staying on the trajectory that they are on right now, and assuming we get an election in a somewhat timely fashion, that would be the outcome, probably a landslide Conservative victory. I mean, a record Conservative victory in Canada for this guy right here, Pierre Poilievre, who reacted to what Trudeau was saying today with this.
For being here today. Canada made me a promise. It makes all of us a promise, whether we're born here or arrive as immigrants. If you work hard, you get a good life. That anyone from anywhere can do anything. That hard work gets a powerful paycheck that buys affordable food and homes in safe neighborhoods. And that promise, like everything else, is broken after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. Most of all, he broke our immigration system. Today's immigration flip-flop is a massive admission of failure by Justin Trudeau, an admission that he's not worth the cost or the corruption. With his own MPs working to throw him out, and less than a year from the carbon tax election, Trudeau has suddenly admitted that radical, uncontrolled immigration and policies related to it are partly to blame for joblessness, housing, and healthcare crises. In fact, let's remember, after 9 years of Trudeau, we have 1 in 10 Torontonians lined up at food banks. We have 1,400 homeless encampments across the province of Ontario. 2 million Canadians have to go to a food bank every month. Scurvy is making a comeback. We have the worst economy in the G7. Everything is broken. And his immigration minister admits that that immigration is out of control after 9 years of Liberal policies. They increased population growth by 200% over the last several years alone. Now, Trudeau called anyone who disagreed with these radical policies racist. Now he's the one cutting immigration to pull back on the disastrous mistakes that he made. But worst, he destroyed the best immigration system in the world, a system that had a common sense consensus of conservatives and liberals for 150 years. Immigration was not even controversial before Trudeau came along. How did he do it? He left Roxham Road open for a year after President Biden offered to close it. He removed the visa requirement for Mexico, which caused an explosion of false and fraudulent refugee claims. And he allowed rampant fraud and abuse in the international student program, which has seen as many as 26 kids living in one Brampton basement and countless losing their lives to drugs, gangs, and other chaos on our streets, sent back in body bags to countries like India. He allowed ISIS terrorists into Canada, who then went on to try and attack Jews and other Canadian citizens. He's presided over a 251% increase in police-reported hate crimes. None of these decisions, by the way, were designed to bring workers to help with the COVID labor shortage, because none of those programs are labor programs. Roxham Road is not a labor program. Refugee claimants are not part of a labor program. International students are not supposed to be for labor, but for study. So this excuse is total nonsense. Trudeau's last-minute pre-election reversal cannot be believed. He can't fix the immigration system that he broke. And he now says he's going to cap immigration. Well, what else has he said he's going to cap? He said 6 months ago he was going to cap the number of temporary residents in this country to 5% of our population. Since that time, it's gone up to 7.3%. He said he'd cap the carbon tax at 11 cents a liter. Now it's 17 cents, and he plans to quadruple it to 61 cents. He said he'd cap this year's deficit at $40 billion. It's already $47 billion just 6 months later. You can't believe anything he says, especially when he's claiming that he will fix what he broke. Common sense conservatives will fix what Trudeau and the NDP Liberals broke. We will restore the best immigration system in the world. We will stop the illegal arrival of false refugee claimants by securing our borders, our ports, and our airports. We will end the abuse in the temporary foreign worker program, the international student program, and the refugee program. We will cap population growth so that it is always below the growth in housing, healthcare, and jobs. And we will, speaking of healthcare, we've got 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses in Canada today who cannot work because they can't get a license. We will create, in the professions, what we did as a country in the trades 7 decades ago. We will create a national licensing standard. Provinces can voluntarily adopt a blue seal so immigrant doctors and nurses can take a test, prove they're qualified, and get to work reducing those wait times in our hospitals. We will screen people coming in to keep terrorists and criminals out and allow law-abiding people into our country. And when they get here, they will see that the Canadian promise is restored. A promise that anyone from anywhere can do anything, where it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters where you're going. It doesn't matter who you knew, it matters what you can do. A country where hard work gets you a powerful paycheck, that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. To do it, we will have a common sense plan to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime, and repair our broken immigration system. Let's bring it home.
We'll stick with it for a moment and see what the questions are.
The announcement this morning says that they're going to have permanent residents, but they're going to draw for the coming years from the temporary residents. People coming in on the temporary foreign workers program or the student program, they wouldn't necessarily be passing the point system that we've used for decades. So I'd like your thoughts on that, and also, are they able to make these changes when the legislature has effectively been shut down for weeks and it shows no sign? Is this just a regulatory change as far as you know, or do they have to put it through Parliament?
No, they won't do it. And yes, they do need to put these changes through Parliament. Trudeau has paralyzed Parliament by refusing the Speaker's order to hand over criminal evidence in the RCMP's investigation into the $400 million green slush fund scandal. As for the people who've come here as international students that Trudeau let in record-smashing numbers without housing, jobs, admissions letters to real educational institutions, or money to pay their bills, I don't know what's going to happen to them. He claims he's going to be kicking some of them out. He'll never do that. And he can't even control our borders. We can't expect that Justin Trudeau will keep any of these frantic, panicked, last-minute promises that he's making to reverse his earlier decisions, that he's making now when his own MPs in the Liberal Party are trying to fire him in an election year. He is a panicked, incompetent, failed prime minister who is not worth the cost, the chaos, and the corruption.
Would you lower immigration levels beyond what the government's announced today, and if so, by how much?
Well, if you want to know what we're going to do, look at what was done in the 150 years before Justin Trudeau. We had the best immigration system in the world. Just 9 years ago, we had a housing surplus. We built more houses in 2015 than were necessary to house the new people coming to the country. It's hard to believe. We had one home for every 1.5 new people, and that was a housing surplus. I was housing minister. Why? Because we had a controlled, common sense immigration system that had worked for a century and a half, and Justin Trudeau came along and with reckless abandon totally demolished it. We will reverse the reckless, uncontrolled approach that he has brought, and bring home the common sense system that worked for a century and a half.
Is there a number then? The answer in French as well. Is there a level that you're looking at specifically beyond today?
Yes, we're going to link the number of we're going to link population growth to the number of houses, the amount of health care, and jobs that are available. So we will have a mathematical formula that ensures that we never grow our population at a faster rate than we grow the availability of jobs, homes, and health care. Yes.
Have you had any conversations with disaffected Liberal MPs about them starting to vote with the opposition or crossing the floor?
I have had conversations with numerous Liberal MPs. Some of them say that they're worried that the carbon tax will cost them their seats and that they want to vote against Trudeau's radical plan to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. And some of them might even be willing to vote non-confidence in Justin Trudeau if that issue comes up again. Obviously, the next election is a referendum on Trudeau's 61 cents a litre carbon tax, and countless Liberal MPs have told our caucus that they're terrified they will be demolished by voters at election time if they vote to cripple our economy with that tax.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.
There you have it. So, is he the guy? Is he gonna save Canada? I don't know. I don't know. There's just a whole lot of racism and a whole lot of hatred out there, and I just don't want to participate. I understand the concerns, and it's for me. It's not about skin color. It's not even so much about religion. It's about politics. It's about people blocking streets. It's about people taking over university campuses and preventing other people that they disagree with from accessing what is public or common area for the public. Those are the kinds of things that I get concerned about. I'll tell you this, there's a new Canadian family. Well, it's not that new. They moved in a few years ago. And he's a friend of mine, and he's Muslim, and he's the friendliest guy on my block. And we talk all the time. He comes and borrows my tools all the time. And he's my buddy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I see some of the BS in the chat right now. And no, I'm not going to ask him to go back anywhere. I like him, and I want him to stay, and his family, and he's got cute kids, and they are always out on in our neighborhood playing, and they come over to visit me, and they always want to know what I'm doing in my driveway or out in my front yard, and they are very interested in Cosmo, and they are fantastic kids. And there's another family that just moved in about a year and a half ago on the other corner. I believe they are from India, and they also always go out of their way to say hello to me, and we're very friendly. I don't want, they're good neighbors, and that's the way it is. So, now that being said, I also recognize that there is racism all the way around, and a lot of hatred coming back at, from one group to another and back to the other group, and it's not just one race that is racist, okay? I get that too. So I'm aware, and we've got problems, but my neighbors are good, so I'm happy with that. Yeah, what I get, Merrick says, I'm in the chat now, I'm being brave. And Merrick says, what I get from this is Rick needs grandkids. Yes, that would be, yes, Merrick. I'll tell you this, okay? This is a dog story and a kid story. You are so right. It's a little bit personal, but I think everybody can relate to what I'm about to say. When I was younger, in my 20s, I got married very young, still married to the same wife who somehow puts up with me. My God, why she does, I don't know, but she does. 21. I was 21 years old when I got married. I'm still married today, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am because I don't want to admit it. She was like, when are we going to have kids? And I was like, can't we just get a dog for a while? Because I was like petrified of being a father. I thought, how am I going to be a good dad? Like, I'm afraid that I'm going to suck at it, right? So I wanted to delay it for quite a while. And so I was successful for a little while. And then I said, well, will I get a dog? For a while. And we did, a Springer Spaniel. And then what I ended up with was a dog and a baby. Right? So anyway, we had 2 kids. And today, I mean, they're growing up. They're in their 20s now. They're out and living their lives. And I have to say, like, I remember the conversation with my wife about whether we wanted to have more kids or not, and I was like, yeah, well, it's probably good, right? Like, because I don't know if I'm any good at being a dad. I guess I was okay, maybe. I don't know. I'll leave that judgment to my kids. Today, though, as I get older, I was very focused on my career back then, and I wish we'd had more kids. Honestly, I do. Family's important. And when you're young and you're stupid and focused on things that you think are important, sometimes the really, truly important things slip away. I don't think we put enough emphasis on all of that stuff. I've always been pretty traditional, but man, I do wish we'd had at least another youngling or 2. I wouldn't mind if there were still a couple kicking around here right now. But it's the way it is. And now you see, I don't know if my daughter's ever going to have kids. She got married there about a year ago, but I don't know if she'll ever have kids. Doesn't seem to be a priority for her. And my son, he's still, single. He has a serious girlfriend, but I don't know what's going to happen there. And time is marching on. Their generation, they are of a different mindset. So will I ever have grandkids? I don't know, but I sure do hope so. And I'll tell you this too, I'm so incredibly grateful to my parents who are still with me. Because when I was young, you know why I ended up being an okay kind of a semi-successful dad? I guess at least they didn't die. I got them fed. They didn't starve to death. I got them their peanut butter sandwiches. I got them to school. It was my parents, right? My mom, my dad, because they were older. And so my mom helped with child care when my wife went to work, and that's family. And so, man, I look back and I see the time has gone just so quickly. So quickly. I just wish we'd had more. And I do hope someday that I do have some grandkids. I do. And I hope you all do too. It's important. Our values seem to be shifting. They've slipped away largely. That was on display again today in Montreal. Dragon called, said there was a stabbing at a high school. And I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, there was a big brawl and a gang fight. And I was like, get out of here. At John F. Kennedy Secondary School, apparently. And so they have 2 suspects arrested after 4 teens were stabbed at this high school in Montreal. I have some photos that I found. Share that with you. And I think this highlights, again, a shift in our society. We have a problem we have a problem. And this is part of it. I'll show you. Here's cops at the scene this afternoon. It happened around 1 o'clock. When the cops got there, they found a 19-year-old with stab wounds to his upper body. He was sent to hospital. And then another 19-year-old, was stabbed in the hand, but did not require hospitalization. And then the police learned that there were 2 teen boys, 15 years old, and they had gone to hospital on their own with stab wounds. And so of the 4 people stabbed, 3 are considered out of danger, which means one of them is in more serious condition. I don't have the exact update on that person's condition, but obviously still in hospital. The school was put on lockdown. Since then, the lockdown has been lifted. More photos here of the scene today. And witnesses at the scene indicate that the person was seriously injured, seemed to have lost a lot of blood. What the motivation was or the reason behind all of this, we don't know. Police are continuing their investigation. Dragon called earlier today, as I say, and indicated that he will be on the case tomorrow on the beat. And I believe those photos are credited to Dominic Fazioli up in Montreal. So appreciate that. And as posted on social media. And we'll be checking in with Dragon tomorrow to find out what the latest on that story is. Very concerning, though. Big fight, I guess. And again, just a breakdown in our society to some degree. Now, as I indicated earlier, I went to go live at 7 p.m. Eastern, as normally planned, and everything went haywire here. It was very strange. Clearly, the computers here were attacked. We're in a war, and I can't say for sure what exactly happened, but something froze up these computers. I clicked live, and then everything went. Everything froze. Then all the Twitter tabs were deleted. The broadcast itself was deleted out of the system, which I had spent an hour setting up. Everything was set up the way it was supposed to go, and then it would not let me go live. The system would not allow it. Couldn't get on. I got an error message up on my screen. Everything went haywire. All the Twitter tabs, nothing with connected to Twitter, X, would work. All those screens went blank. Other screens were still up. If there was anything from any other website, those things were up. Nothing from X. And it was the strangest thing. I've never seen that before. Now, I've had other problems here that have prevented us from going live. And I know that we have been hacked in the past. No question about it. We've been under cyber attack here. I've dealt with that in the past. I had to spend literally thousands of dollars implementing cybersecurity measures here to protect certain digital assets that we have. I've talked about that in the past. And again, now I noticed last night in the chat some people accusing me of not allowing certain people who have been on this program before, some of them regular contributors, accusing me of preventing them from coming back because they disagree with me about things. Well, I can tell you that is not the case. I can also tell you that, I'm getting to the email, Halo. I can also tell you that, where was I again? Yeah, I'm going to get to that email. I will. There are people, what I'm getting at is there are people definitely who want us shut down, even now. They really don't like me. I think that kind of goes with the territory when you're online anyway these days. But I mean, there are some people who really don't like me. I don't even quite understand why, except that, some people really don't believe in free speech, and yet they come around, they scream and yell and holler and say that they want their free speech here. And and then on the flip side of that, what they really want to do is shut this place down. They're in there, they're malicious, they attack, they are disruptive. They've been disruptive in the chat for destructive reasons. They've been here only to destroy. And as far as me telling people, including some regular contributors who've been around before, that they can't come back, it's not true. It's not true at all. Now, case in point, Kevin Michelizzi. He's a friend. We don't always agree on everything, but he's welcome to come back. And in fact, I extended an invitation to him last week, but the people are spinning up, conspiracy theories about me. Like, I'm not allowing Kevin to come back because he disagrees with Rick. Not true. He's quite welcome to come back. I invited him last week. I don't want to get into his reasons for not taking me up on the invitation. He had his reasons, and they were legitimate, and we're still friends. And so he can come back if he wants to come back. But things here, the tone is a little bit different. Lori. People, where's Lori? Rick won't let Lori come back. No, Lori could come back. There are a bunch of reasons why Lori's not here. Most of them her personal reasons why she's not here. And a lot of reasons I would not share with you because it would not be appropriate for me to share because they're their reasons and I don't want to speak for them. Just as I would not speak if I had employees or volunteers and they have particular reasons for coming or going or not contributing. That's up to them. And it's like it's not appropriate for me to talk about things involving other people. I can tell you that one of the reasons, because people keep asking, with Lori, we had a conversation and she was like full on in for RFK Jr. And I said, well, over here, we do not endorse any candidates because I'm an old school journalist that way. I will express my opinion. I'm an equal opportunity criticizer and I will express my opinion, but I'm not really formally endorsing anybody. And so there were some things that she was doing in that regard that we both agreed at the end of the day, at least during the election and so on, maybe she should go and just practice journalism in her own way, but maybe not here for a while she's actively involved with that campaign. Now, I don't know where she's at with things right now. I haven't really been following what she's up to. I'm not really able to do that, but it's okay. But people are like attacking me because they want to be destructive. And clearly there are people who have targeted me because they're very afraid of me. That much is very clear. Some people are very, very, very afraid of little old me. And a lot of people don't understand what I'm doing because I'm old school. They're like, what side is he on? I'm on the side of journalism. And I'm trying to uphold high ethical standards, high professional standards here in the process of adapting to this new medium in an atmosphere of information warfare, knowing full well that I am right in the crossfire of it all every single night. And trying to practice that kind of journalism here puts me in the crosshairs of a lot of people who want me to just regurgitate their narrative, and I don't do that. So some people aren't happy about it because I ask tough questions and I challenge people when they sometimes come on and obviously get things absolutely wrong, or they lie, or they're just misinformed themselves. And I don't just sit here and let people infect your mind with information that is simply demonstrably false, either for malicious, intentionally destructive purposes in order to drive you crazy or do whatever it is that they think they want to do, or get you to go and participate in something or vote a particular way or whatever it is, or if they're just misguided and misinformed and mistaken themselves. But if I'm aware, I'm going to challenge them on it. That's my job. And I'm not going to stop. And people can try to shut me down, and you can keep on trying to hack me. And the person who sent me this, I know who this person is. And I'm going to show you the email. I get this stuff virtually daily. This message came in shortly after tonight's broadcast was derailed. Here it is here. It reads, and I'm not showing you the identity of the person. Came in at 7:29 p.m. I tried to go live at 7, and then this comes in. It says, this to keep you away from watching real hangings at 4 prison sites. Oh, really? Oh, Rick, we totally dismantled Canada. You did you? We replaced and hanged everyone we felt was guilty. We are talking all corporations down, we are taking all corporations down. A little gift before Christmas. Wow, sounds a lot like communism. Everything you've been following has been the fake news you are meant to see. You are really too stupid as a reporter. This proves us right. You have always been a great loser with raccoon eyes. And this person has told me personally on the phone in the past that they were responsible for having our Facebook account permanently deleted, that they were responsible for some of the hacking, and then this comes in tonight after that, because they are part of a larger, shall we say, operation. Do I believe that they really have that power? I don't know. I don't think that person is smart enough to have done any of this on their own, but I know that they're part of a much larger group, much, much larger. And they are part of the problem. They're seriously part of the problem. And yeah, newsflash, they haven't dismantled Canada. And the people that he thinks have been hanged, that hasn't happened either. And God forbid that it ever does. But I'll tell you, some people are so jacked up because of the BS that they're being fed all the time that they're liable to go and try stuff like that. And we saw just this past week a person head off to Parliament to try to go in and force his way into the Parliament buildings. Again, I think it was the 9th time. And in the past, they've stated that they want to personally arrest the Prime Minister and other members of Parliament. And I said, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. Because this is the mania that's being stuck in people's heads. If you're thinking like that, you better check yourself. Because it's just going to lead to bad things for you. You know, the outcome is not good. That guy got arrested. Not surprising. Yeah, and the person who sent me that email, they've got some screws loose. They're crazy. Because they have been screwed with in the head. Don't be that guy. And that's what I deal with every single day, to one degree or another. If it's not F the Jews on my phone, it's emails like that and worse. And I deal all the time with like outright threats. I'm not complaining. I'm just showing you that we've got a problem out there. Don't be part of the problem. If you think any of that's a solution, if you're believing any of that stuff, you are out to lunch. And you need to get grounded. turn off your damn internet. Don't even watch me. Go outside for a while. Run around in the grass with your shoes off and feel the grass. Go touch some trees. Go to the park. Go to the beach before it snows. Get back in touch with reality, with the real world. Calm down. And stop listening to all the, he's a Nazi, she's a communist. We've got problems. But if we don't get back to reality, get a little bit grounded, bring things back into real perspective, and see through some of this political rhetoric that is just designed to get people jacked right up and scared to the point where it's the most important election. If we don't give that candidate doesn't get elected, it's the end of the country and the end of everything. Well, it could come to that. If you keep thinking like that and letting those people lead you around by the nose. No. This guy here, he's got a problem. That's okay. I'm not upset with him. I feel sad. I pity him. And I'm living rent-free in his head for no reason, because he's not my enemy. But he's got a problem. We have a problem. Be part of the solution. That's what I'm trying to do here every single night. I love you guys. And I will do my very best to be back here tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for our regular Maverick News broadcast, and tomorrow night, 10 p.m., special Halloween edition of Maverick Midnight Matinee. I still haven't picked the movie. Keep sending me those suggestions. I have one in particular that I'd like to run, but I'm still looking at the suggestions, so I'll pick it in the morning, and I'll share the decision with you tomorrow night during Maverick News, again, 7 p.m. Eastern. See you then. On the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.